everybody. Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm like futzing with my phone here, because we want our guests to be able to share it with all. We have an amazing guest, but I'm not telling you who it is yet, okay? But I just highlighted her name, and yes, it'll come up on her page, and she can share today with all her friends. Hi, how are you? Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, that's right. 'Tis the season.
'Tis the season to be jolly. Tim is still in recovery from his mega Thanksgiving.
Oh, my goodness. I cooked everything that's imaginable. My kitchen had just exploded with food, with turkey and ham, mac and cheese, stuffing.
All the stuff, sweet potato,
candied yams, and the whole bit, everything. And then I just had friends come in and out, friends who don't have family here, or just in and out all day. And we had a ball.
It's great. It's great. I love that you do this.
My first, I started cooking at 6 a.m. My first guest arrived at 12:30. That was Michael Musto. And then it went, my last guest left at 9:30 that evening.
Oh my God.
So it was a big day, but it was so worth it.
Did you have any guests that like stayed?
Yeah, I had a couple that stayed till about 9:30. Yeah.
And came in early on and stayed till 9. There's always those. I'm actually guilty of that.
Well,
I'm always the first.
Our friend Kit.
I love
Kit.
Yeah,
I told Kit to stay as long as he wanted.
Yeah.
So we had a ball. It was great.
Amazing playwright. That's good. That's great. I was, of course, at my family. We did the shuffle off to Buffalo, except it wasn't Buffalo. It was Boston. And my daughter's boyfriend, God bless him, drove. I can't take these long car rides.
Right.
You know, and it was great to be with family. I haven't been up there in a while. It was my first Thanksgiving without Alan.
Yes,
too. So it was nice to have family around.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, many of you have seen on Facebook, I schlepped that Christmas tree home from Pennsylvania. Right. Yes, I did.
So you go to Boston and then back to New York and then out to Pennsylvania.
I dropped them off at the train station in New York. Then I drove out to Pennsylvania because I knew a bargain was waiting for me. I got the most incredible tree for $35.
Wow.
Right.
And I might have you schlep one over for me.
And you can you can watch my Facebook page and see my $35 tree. I have it all decorated.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It's
beautiful,
and God bless my little nugget. He stayed by my side. I went to a great fundraiser this weekend for my organization, TriVersity. We had our holiday party, but we also had it on December 1st. And the dilemma was, how can we have a holiday party on December 1st when that's World AIDS Day? So we turned it into also a donating fundraiser for the Zero Project,
nice.
Which was, for those of you that don't know, the Zero Project defends people that have gone to jail because they've been criminalized for their HIV status. You can point to someone and say, hey, they didn't tell me they had HIV. So that gets into all kinds of crazy legal stuff. But the party was great. And then Saturday, I went to another get together for out in Pennsylvania for a place called Gate. They have therapeutic riding for veterans or people that have special needs. They gave a hell of a fundraiser, and I sat on Santa's lap. I did.
Yeah, I saw the picture.
And Santa was uncomfortable. No, I did. I was like, I was trying because it had been kids all day, and I was like, Santa, can I sit on your lap? He's like, oh, sure. And you know what I'm saying? Like, Tim, you would have totally gotten into the character. Oh, little girl, please. Yeah. No, this Santa wasn't having any of it. It was an awkward Santa moment. I felt like those kids, whose parents dragged them to see Santa. Yeah. And then the kids hysterical crying. Now, for all of you who are tuned in today and watching, this Saturday night, we are all in 50 Shades of Gay.
50 Shades of Gay at the Copacabana.
Which we're very excited about. Now, I have to ask you something.
Ask me anything.
Okay. You are, you debuted your amazing song on Facebook. You're going to be singing it at the show, right?
Yes, I will be singing it live at the show. I dropped my new music video, which is it's great. It's a Christmas video, and it's called "I Love New York at Christmas," and it's beautiful. We went all over town, and everything from the Statue of Liberty to Times Square and the Rockefeller tree, and it's a very fun, cute video. You can search on YouTube, Tym Moss, Tym, I Love New York at Christmas.
Yes, and you can come see Tim
or go to my Facebook page.
Or you can come to 50 Shades of Gay Saturday night. We have a few tickets left. Love to see everyone. We've got special drinks. Icavelli produces the show as well as, you know, one of the stars, but he also comes up with great drink names. I can't remember their
I can't remember them either. They've got 4 specialized drinks that are
I'm so hot, Toddy.
Yes, right. Something
I made that up. But
that was good.
Yeah,
that'll
that
be
was
the
good.
next show.
That'll be on the next show. Please make a note. Your New Year's Eve plans. If you plan on coming to Pangea on New Year's Eve, which is going to be fabulous.
Which is where we're at now.
We are at Pangea where we do our show from. We have Christine Petty in the cabaret room and the fabulous Jackson Scott, who we've had on the show. He will be in the front room. So we've got every end covered, which is important to start off your.
That's a great way to bring the year
in. Isn't that a great way to bring the new year in? And you know what? That's all that's fit to print or misfit to print at this point.
Yeah, I'm just checking. Hold on.
All right, Tim is checking. We don't want to forget anything.
Oh, today this morning I went and got my global entry, which is like the TSA pre-check, but it's for both domestic and international flights. So I've got a lot of shows coming up, and I'm going to be in Europe a couple times, and so I thought I'm not going to do those lines anymore.
Right. No more lines for Tim. No, at least not those kind of lines.
Yes, right. Well, no kinds of lines anymore.
Whoa, we just lost a light, and I was about on that note. We just lost a light. I was about to say how our lighting looks good today.
Yes, it does.
What did we do that was different?
I don't know.
But it looks really good. Okay.
Speaking of looking good.
Our fabulous guest, the minute you hear the name, you'll say, oh my God, she's amazing. The New York Times called her the consummate performer. Besides being the winner of the Broadway World Awards Best Show for They Wrote the Songs, she had an incredibly successful CD, Remembering Mr. Sinatra. Yeah. And if anyone could remember Mr. Sinatra, she could. Please put your hands together for the consummate performer, the amazing voice, the amazing Julie Budd.
Yeah. Hello.
How was that for an intro?
I loved it. Are you kidding?
It's hard. It's hard because there's so much when you have a performer like yourself that has so much incredible history and has just been performing their entire life. It's so hard to come up with like a little, intro with a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. But
thank you very much. I love the Santa thing. I love that whole thing with Santa.
Yeah, I know. Santa was upset.
So how are you doing? You're looking wonderful.
Oh, Tim, it's good to see you. I miss you.
We worked together. You guys had worked together.
Yes, yeah, we worked together, and he was up in my apartment
with Richard Skipper.
With Richard
Skipper.
We
love Richard Skipper.
And then Tim he hosted a wonderful interview with me at the Metropolitan Room. Remember that?
Right. Yes.
That interview, Tim, is a highlight. And a lot of people, when they see it, they get in touch with me and they say, Julie, that was one of the most insightful interviews. And I said, that's because I had a great person to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate that very much.
Anyone can ever pay. But, it's great that you guys have some history. Your history, you affected me greatly growing up. You were one of my idols. We came out at the same time. I come from the Bronx. You come from Brooklyn.
Are you a Bronx girl? Yeah.
I'm a Bronx girl, and we always like when a girl from the boroughs makes it big.
I thought I heard you say Boston.
I went to Boston for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So my sister, who lives in Albany, who grew up in the Bronx with me, she lives in Albany. My niece grew up in Albany, but she lives in Boston. But I am a borough girl through and through, as you can tell. And how very cool! First of all, Lori Towers, who's a friend of yours and an amazing publicist, and I love her to death. She grew up like, what was it, next door to you? Or
next door, right next door.
I can't believe
we practically shared the back porch.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
She's a great gal.
She's a great gal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember her brother and her mother, and I remember the whole family.
Wow.
Well, it's nice considering, right? We can have these conversations because our lives take different twists and turns. And certainly, my God, you were performing in Vegas like so young.
Yeah.
Really?
Las Vegas, around the country, there are child labor laws in every state. And every state sort of varies a little. Some are 21, some are 18. They have different laws wherever you go. Las Vegas is like the only place where there are like no child labor laws.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, none. I could work in Las Vegas when I was 12, 13. I could work a concert situation. I could work a performing arts center. I could work a symphony. I could work television. But the law prohibited me in New York City and in various other states as well to work nightclubs. We called them major showrooms at that time.
I love that, major showrooms.
They were major showrooms because they had orchestras.
Wow.
They had orchestras.
Wow.
And the thing is, I couldn't work in those places in many states until I was 21. Most of them were 18, but Las Vegas, nothing.
Yes, anything
nothing.
No,
I could go into
problem.
Las Vegas in my diapers.
They have no scruples in Las Vegas. It's amazing. So, like early on in the game, you were really basically, from what I got, you were discovered by somebody, and you were performing at a camp or something.
Well, I love this story. Wasn't that Herb where you met Herb in the Catskills?
That was Herb Bernstein.
Tell us
and
that
I
story.
need to know where in the Catskills, because I know a lot about the Catskills too. Tell us the whole story.
This story is amazing.
We love the Catskills.
It's one of those bizarre things that happen in a person's life and nobody could believe it. It's not made up, but it is a true story. My parents used to send me away to sleepaway camp with my sister Jill every summer, because what are you going to do with kids in the summertime?
You out of Brooklyn, you had to get them out of the boroughs in the summer.
You sent them to sleepaway camp. So I used to go with my sister Jill to sleepaway camp. And then my little sister Susie went to camp too. So all three of us kids, we were going to camp. My sisters were great athletes. They were camper of the minute, camper of the week, camper of this, camper. I was looking like to get out of there. To me, everything made me itch. I couldn't stand.
No, I get it. Right. Like, why am I here?
I was not a camper. Don't even add just the whole thing. 7 o'clock in the morning, reveille. Yeah. No, canoeing. Forget it.
Not for you, right? No softball for you. No canoeing. None of that stuff.
No. So my sisters were brilliant. I went for like 5 or 6 years. I think in my 6th year, my parents came up. The parent day. They usually in the middle of the summer have some visiting day or something with the parents.
Yeah.
And I did my Camp Granada. I said, you have to take me.
Oh, wait. Hello, mother. Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Granada. Camp is very entertaining, and they say we'll have some fun if it stops raining. I can't. Alan Sherman, my son, the folk singer. Perfect.
My son, the nut. My son, the nut. My son, the nut. So my parents took me home, and then I wound up at my aunt's bungalow colony, which was a really nice place. And then the next summer, my father said to my mother, what are we going to do with her? She's impossible. The other kids, they have a great time.
Right.
What's the matter with this girl? So my mother said, where should we go, Solly? My father's name was Saul.
My father's name was Solly also, I wanted to tell you. Saul.
Yeah. Saul, yeah. So he said, let's go to Tamarack. And you'll stay in the hotel and we'll get rooms. It'll be very nice. You won't have to cook. You won't have to do anything. They have a dining room. The kids will have other kids to play with. It'll be fine. Jilly, my older sister, went to camp. I went with Susie to Tamarack. So we're in Tamarack. What do you think that they do to me the first day? They put me in day camp.
Right.
I'm making ashtrays in day camp.
Oh my God, those were so fun though. You enjoyed making the ashtrays, right?
I don't know. I wanted to break out. I felt like a prisoner that had to break out, you know?
I loved making ashtrays.
And I found out that there was a talent show.
It's a great story.
I found out there was a talent. No, in Tamarack.
In Tamarack, that they were going to do.
And they had these big showrooms up in the Catskills.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
1,500 big showrooms, orchestras. It was,
Yeah, they were incredible.
And the Concord had over 3,000 seats. I mean, big showroom.
Met my ex at the Concord. I love the Borscht Belt, by the way. Those were the days. You're right. They were amazing.
Major artists were playing in the Catskills in those days. It was a major place for artists. So I hear this talent show, and this is my moment. So I cut camp and I went down to the showroom and I auditioned for the show. And this man, and I owe my career to this man. He's a wonderful man. His name was Vic Minnow, and he was the social director, and he was the MC, and he was an ex-prize fighter, and he was kind of a rough guy.
Oh my God, I love this story.
And he loved me. He loved me. I walked in. I was as big as a minute.
And how old were you then? Probably 12.
Yeah.
I just turned 12.
Wow.
And I was in my camp shorts and my camp t-shirt. And I walk in and I go up to the stage, and there are all these adults there, and they're all vocalizing and working on whatever they were going to audition. And there was a wonderful musician. His name was Milton Lear. Wonderful musician. And they said, "What are you doing here?" Now, I have to preface this by saying when I was 12, I looked 8.
I imagine you was very tiny, very slight. Yeah.
I was.
No bigger than a minute, as we would say.
Right. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to win the contest."
Oh.
I didn't say I was here to be in the contest. I said, "I'm here to win the contest." And they said, "Well, what do you want to sing?" And I said, they told me I have to have 2 songs. I said, so I picked Moon River, and I picked Who Can I Turn To?
At 12 years of age.
Wow.
Those are big songs, Julie.
He was freaked out. And already, like, I could see the guy loved me. It was like, he loved me. So he said, "What key?" And then I froze. And I said, he said, "Did you bring music?" And I went, "Just follow me."
Ah! Wow.
Don't even ask me where I had this chutzpah. Don't even ask me.
And a half,
I wanted to win this contest, so I sang for them. And then Vic came running over to me, and Milty was smiling from ear to ear, Milt. And he said, "You're going to close the show."
Wow.
So I said to him, "Is that good?"
You had never done this before.
He said, "It's very good."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, what time do I have to be back?" Now you have to understand, my mother did not know I was doing this. And my father, because my mother would never go to a nightclub without my dad. That's number one. So my mother knew nothing about this. My father didn't even come up until the weekend. And this was like a Friday night or something. And Daddy didn't come up till very, very late. And so if Mommy and Daddy were going to go out, they'd go out on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So while I'm walking out, Vic Minnow comes up to me and he says, "There's a fella staying a little bit off the property. A little bit off the property is about 2 miles away." And he said, 1.5 miles. And he said, his name is Herb Bernstein. And he's had a lot of hits with Dusty Springfield and Laura Nyro and the Four Seasons and all these people. And he has a lot of hit records on the charts. He said, "You should have him come to this show to hear you." I said, "Okay." He says, "I'm going to tell him anyway, but go down there and tell him. Tell him you're going to be on the show." And he should come.
1.5 miles?
2 miles away.
I walked on a road. If my mother ever knew I did this. I left Tamarack, and you remember those country roads?
Oh my God, of course.
They were like desolate. And I walked, and I asked somebody at the desk, I said, "Where do I find this place?" Where they told me to. "Oh, just go straight. You can't get lost. Just go straight."
That's how people are in the country, right? Just it's down the road a piece.
I felt like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. So I'm walking on this road. And then I saw the name of the place and I go in. Now, I must have gone 1 mile at least alone. And I go in And thank God it was summer because it stays light until 9 o'clock. Can you imagine?
Yes, right.
And I go in and I see a lot of people. And I say, do you know a fella by the name of Herb Bernstein? And they say, yeah, he lives over there. I go up and I knock on the door. And I said, hello, Mr. Bernstein. Vic Minnow sent me. And he said, you should come and see me because he said, I'm really, really good. And that you would really, really like me. He said, okay, I'll come. I said, okay. And I kept following him all day.
I was going to say, did he drive you back? Hopefully.
He didn't know where
she came from. Like you dropped out of the sky. Who is this kid? This kid.
I said, who is this? It's from a circus. So he came out and he went to the handball court. I followed him to the handball court. Then he went swimming and I went underwater. And I
it's a sitcom, Julie. That's so funny.
Finally, he turned to me. You ask Herbie, Tim. You know Herbie. You ask Herbie.
Yeah.
And he said, all right already. I'll come to the show. All right. So that night, I get to the show. And I'm standing backstage. And most of the people were on the other side of the wings. I was on this side. I entered from this side. And I was alone on that side. And I went out and I did my songs. And they stood up. And I got scared. I thought, are they leaving?
Wow.
But it was a standing ovation.
Oh my God.
And I took my bows and I walked off. And as I walked off, I saw Herbie with his arms open. And I ran into his arms and he said to me, listen, I need to speak to your parents. Just like that. Like he was serious now. It wasn't like, who is this crazy kid? And he said, I need to speak to your parents. So the next day, Herbie said, meet me here tomorrow. Can you meet me at like 1 o'clock? I want to hear you on the piano. Because I think Herbie wanted to hear me alone, just piano voice, to really see if this instrument was really worth what he thought.
Right.
Because there's nothing like piano voice to really, Yeah,
absolutely.
So, my father comes up because he didn't come up on Friday night. It was one of those late nights at work. He just couldn't make it. And Daddy hated to drive late at night. So he came up early the next day and he goes up to my friends and he says, where's my daughter? And she goes, my friend said to my father, she's in the nightclub with a man.
With a man in the night. Your dad must have gone ballistic.
My father, when he walked into the nightclub, I knew my father, those eyes, when he got upset, those eyes. So Herbie was cool. He said, go into the wings. Let me talk to your dad. Well, it turns out Herbie's from Brooklyn. My dad's from Brooklyn.
That's all you need.
My grandmother knew his mother.
Oh my God.
And his father. No, my grandmother knew his father because Herbie's father used to sell insurance in Borough Park. My grandmother lived in Borough Park. And he used to have strudel in my grandmother's kitchen.
Oh my God. I love this.
This was like Jewish geography.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it turned out Herbie wanted to kind of demo with me. So he said, so can I have like a weekend with her to cut a demo? He said, yeah, sure. My father didn't think anything of it. He thought the work was going to be way over my head. And I was a little kid. So he said, yeah, let her do it. So I cut this demo. Turns out Herbie's recording Merv Griffin.
Wow.
And Merv, and he took me to the session. And on the break, he had me sing for Merv. And Merv went crazy. And he said, she's on the show. She's on the show.
Wow. You realize how quick, this is amazing. This is the stuff dreams are made of.
Yeah.
This was so fast. I didn't know what I was doing. I just went by instinct and went by my rehearsals with Herbie. Before I knew it, I was on television. Merv had me on every single week. I did the opening spot and the closing spot.
Wow.
And you know how valuable that kind of
Oh my God.
thing is, because remember, in those days, we didn't have 9 million channels.
Right.
Exactly.
Everybody's watching the same thing at the
And
same
Merv
time.
Griffin was huge. I grew
Yeah.
up with Merv. I
Yeah.
mean, huge.
And from Merv Griffin, I worked with Johnny Carson. I worked with
All
Mike
of them.
Douglas. I worked with Ed Sullivan.
God.
I did every show. I worked with Carol Burnett. I worked with Jim Neighbors. I had a CBS contract. So all of those shows on the East Coast for CBS, I did. All of the ones out in Fairfax, you know, the CBS out in Fairfax. I did that one in LA, you know, and I worked and I was working on television consistently for the next 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
30
it's
years.
quite a story.
Wow.
Now you had to end up going to like professional children's school, and you.
I went to
Lincoln.
I went to Lincoln Square Academy with Irene Cara,
Wow.
Larry Fishburne, Robbie Benson.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
There were a lot of kids. I mean, a lot of kids I went to school with. Ben Stiller and his sister.
Yeah.
They were both
Amy.
very,
Yeah.
Amy, she was adorable.
Yeah,
and,
she was.
And they went to Lincoln Square Academy. Stephanie Mills went to Lincoln Square Academy.
amazing.
Yeah. In
Well,
fact,
you
Quincy Jones' daughter, Jolie Jones, went to Lincoln
Jolie,
Square.
yeah.
I met Jolie at Lincoln Square. Jolie was a senior. I was a freshman. And I thought, when I met Jolie Jones, she was the most gorgeous girl I ever saw in my life. And I thought, oh, maybe if you go to the school, you get that gorgeous.
By the time
worked.
By the time you graduate, right? You're gorgeous. You're gorgeous too. The gorgeous rubs off. Wow.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Well, how about we take a quick break and let's take a look at one of the videos. It's just kind of a promo video, but of you singing. I love
we
this
love
video.
Okay.
Of
All right.
Julie.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Julie Bond.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-at, 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 do-at. Don't mean a thing, all you gotta do is sing. Do-at, 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 do-at. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you've got. Oh, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-at, 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 do-at. Do-at, 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 do-at. Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Just give that rhythm everything you've got. Oh, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-at, 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 do-at. Do-at, 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 do-at. If it ain't got that sweet. Do-at, 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 do-at.
My
Love
God. That voice. Oh my God.
But you see, I was raised with orchestras. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting because people that are working at 54 Below and
Yeah.
all these different rooms, you know, Birdland and all the wonderful places we have, Carlisle, they're working with small combos.
Right.
I was raised with orchestras, so it was interesting for me to scale down
Yeah, right.
because you know, if I had a show written, it had to be written for the minimum of 15 men.
Wow.
The minimum.
So you have
Because the orchestras, well, you saw, you know, I was always, and then I sort of graduated into performing arts centers where I had some larger,
Huge.
you know, yeah. And then I started working with symphonies.
wow.
And that's when my life really, really, really changed. It was a great time for me.
Wow. And so you would have to supply the score of all the arrangements for maybe like a 40 orchestra.
Oh, Tim, 40 was Vegas.
No.
Oh, no.
How,
Symphony, you could have over 100 musicians.
Oh my God.
So it could go anywhere, depending upon the size of the orchestra. It could go from 60 to 105, 110,
Amazing.
because depending upon how large the sections were.
Right.
So and I had full orchestras, everything. My stuff was full orchestra to begin with, because I was playing with orchestras. So Herb had to augment it. See, I was lucky with Herb because he's an orchestrator. So Herbie was able to augment my entire.
Such an incredible story.
But I had 16 different shows.
Wow, my goodness.
My library is huge. I mean, for people who understand what we're talking about, I mean, you have a show where you have, let's say, 25 selections in the show.
Wow.
But for every selection, you have to have 60 to 100 pieces, because you have that many ladies and gentlemen in the orchestra.
And this is also, we're talking pieces of paper here of orchestration that is written out. It's not like now where you can pull it up on your iPad and play it.
This is enormous. Now, a lot of people do have it on programs and the symphonies printed out, but you know, look, Herbie always has the score with him. He has the master sheet with everything in it, everything you need to conduct. And then we have we either send stuff FedEx or UPS in advance, or I have been known to take it on the plane with me. I will not part with my
music. Make sure it's safe.
I did a show. I flew out on a flight with Harry Belafonte one night.
Oh my God.
Nicest man in the world. And God bless him. He was such a good soul.
Gentleman,
smart,
beautiful.
Smart, just beautiful person. I knew his son David, you know, and David wanted to be in the recording business at the time that I knew him, and he was working on engineering. And I remember Shari, you know, lovely, gorgeous girl. And so we flew out together, and he didn't live far from me. He was a little further uptown from me on like the West End kind, the Avenue of West End, a little further up. And he said, "Jules, I'm really upset." And I said, "What's the matter?" We were going to Puerto Rico. Now I remember, we were going to Puerto Rico, working at the El San Juan. He was going in first, and then I was going in. And we weren't that many days apart, and I liked to go in a little bit early because I like to get adjusted.
Yeah, feel for the space.
My voice and everything. So we were there, and I wanted to see his show anyway because it gave me an idea of the room a little bit. It was helpful. So we're on the flight. He says, "Jules, they lost my luggage." And I said, "Oh, Harry, that's horrible." I said, "But at least you have your music."
He didn't.
He grabs my arm. He goes, "Jules, we checked the music."
Oh my God.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh
I mean,
we checked the music, and I showed him the overhead because we were sitting. I said, come here, I got to show you. And I opened the overhead. I said, "You see those two bags? One Herbie schleps, one I schlep."
And they're this high, right? With music?
The old music cases, you know what they are.
Wow.
And I said, "That's my carry-on. I don't care what I lose. I can always buy a dress." I said, "But my charts stay with me." He said, "Julie, I will never check my music." He said, "But I've checked my music my whole career, nothing." And you know, those were the days when you went on tour and celebrities were on the plane with you. I mean, I remember I flew to LA with Danny Kaye.
Oh my God.
Mean, no, but you know, they were not on private flights. They all went first class. And so I remember Lucille Ball was on a flight one time.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, but you would, and especially when you were going out to LA, a lot of the celebrities or coming back and forth from New York to LA, you would see a lot of it. But I don't remember what happened, but I think Harry got his music like just in time for the show. You know, it was one of those things. That happened to me when I was doing Johnny Carson one time. They lost my suitcase, and I had this, but at least I had the music. And I had the music, and Herbie and Doc were working together, and that was fine because I had the music. But I had this great dress I wanted to wear on the show, and they lost my luggage. So they took me to the costume department, and they were dressing me up in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes before I was going on stage. Ralph Gulko was doing my hair and makeup. And I loved him. He taught me more about camera and what to do. I was just so lucky. I was rich because I had these great people who invested in
Surrounding
me.
you.
Yeah.
And they were helping to
Yeah.
guide and navigate.
Yeah.
And Johnny came
Absolutely.
backstage to help me pick the right dress. He was so great.
Wow.
Johnny was great to me. And 5 minutes before I go on, one of the, ADs came in and said, "We got the luggage."
Oh my God.
And it had all these stickers all over it, and I tore it open, and there was the dress.
Oh my
And-
God.
Amazing story. Wow.
But these stories that you're telling are just remarkable
Yeah.
that's like the golden age of American entertainment.
It was so great. You have no
and
idea.
you were in the middle of it. How
And
wonderful.
it was like the seas just continued to part and part and part. Anything you needed was put in front of you. Talk about you walking that 2 miles. For me, it starts
Yeah.
with you walking that 2
Yep.
miles to meet her.
Herbie.
Because deep in your inner self, you knew that your whole life was going to change. And
It's so interesting. Yeah,
the
that you
bond.
say that. Thank you for saying that, because I was just talking to somebody about that. I said, you can't control life, but
Right.
when you feel something and there's a calling for it, you really have to, even if you have no idea, it could sound as crazy as
Right.
you got to follow it. You don't know where it's going to lead. It may lead to nothing, but you may meet somebody.
along that way.
Absolutely.
along the-
I met Vic Minnow.
right.
Yes.
And if I didn't meet Vic Minnow, you and I would not be talking. It's funny. I think I would have been in the business,
Uh-huh.
but I might not have had as good an experience as I had having Herbie as my he was the mentor. He was
Amazing, because it all started to happen. I have this is my personal question. This gift of a voice that you have, were you as a very small child singing?
Oh yeah.
You
My grandmother knew this was what I was going to do.
Uh-huh.
My little grandma from Austria knew that this was what I was going to do. And she used to tell me when I used to stay at her house a lot, and she lived in Borough Park. She lived at 36 Day Hill Road, right off Fort Hamilton Parkway, if you know Brooklyn.
I know where it is.
Right between like McDonald Avenue and Church, that area.
Uh-huh.
And there was a school there right across the street. And my grandmother used to sit outside on the benches, because outside the schoolyard there were these benches. And my grandmother used to sit on the benches with her girlfriends. And they were all raving about their grandchildren. My grandchild sister.
My grandchild is a genius.
Right. And my grandmother goes, my Jewish name is Esther Chai. So my grandmother would say to me, Esther Chai, sing for the ladies.
I love Grandma.
She was hilarious. And I'd say, Grandma, in the middle of the street, you want me to sing for the women? She goes, yes. And be very dramatic.
Oh my God.
She was like my agent. Well, I would sing, oh. And she would say, sing a Jewish song.
Oh.
Because a lot of these people were Holocaustic people.
Right.
Oh,
Borough
wow.
Park is very religious.
Wow.
Yeah,
things change, but I know Borough Park.
And they were survivors of the Holocaust.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
People
And
had
in those days,
fingers on their arms.
in those days,
Wow.
days, a lot of the people were. So I would sing like Via Hinzelach Gain. In Yiddish, that means tell me where shall I go? And they would be crying, and she'd sing. And that's what my granddaughter did.
Oh, Julie, that is so.
And she was the only one. And my other grandmother, she wanted me to always be glamorous. She said to me, my grandmother, they were great. I loved my grandmothers, and I was lucky because they loved each other. Like, it made the family close when the in-laws like each other. You know?
Yeah, it makes it much easier.
And they were like, in fact, they knew each other before my parents were born.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much in your life, you know the saying, it was beschert. It's beschert.
It was meant to be.
But the
Yeah.
more
to
you
be,
talk,
exactly.
because there's too many, right? Coincidences here. Incredible.
But I always took my life with me on the road. I was not like one of these sort of even though I was always on the road, I wasn't one of these sort of like lounge lizard, road hogs,
Right.
like the next gig and the next gig. I went home in between because I
Uh-huh.
thought it was like, first of all, I wanted to study. And secondly, I wanted to have my feet on the ground. I wanted to be grounded. I didn't want to just, I went out for many, many months at a time. But I knew people that went out for 9 months at a time or a year at a time. I wouldn't do
Right,
that. And I
right,
wouldn't do it to my voice either. I was always
right.
very cognizant
Mhm.
of the instrument. I didn't go out. I didn't go out after shows. And I still never do that. I don't go out after shows because I think you have to guard it.
Absolutely.
You're also
Absolutely.
so grounded from
Now-
this family that you come from. That's your grounding.
Now, I've got a question for you. You had
I was
mentioned,
lucky.
you had mentioned earlier when your father came up on that Saturday, and he said he wanted to, Herb wanted to meet with him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Herbie said I have to meet you.
And he was like, and
you
he
know.
make the demo, and your father was like, yeah, okay, go ahead. How did he come around to finally seeing that and appreciating the gift that you have?
My father was real smart.
Uh-huh.
And my mother was very intuitive and smart. My
Uh-huh.
mother knew who her daughter was. My mother was also an artist.
Mhm.
My mother was a fantastic vocalist. As a child, she sang on radio.
There you go.
But my mother had a very different personality than me. My mother was too sensitive to be in show business as we are.
Mhm. Right.
And my mother, I remember a major orchestra leader approached my mother and wanted my mother to work with his orchestra. And my mother, I heard this story. My mother actually told me this story. I heard this. And my mother said, no, I'm going home to marry Sally.
Oh.
Okay, my mother was not ambitious the way I was, but
Uh-huh.
she loved music. And my mother actually had a finer instrument than I have. My mother had a very unusual, fine instrument. But my mother, you see, to be in show business, and this is true, you need more than just the talent. You have to have the discipline, you have to have the grit, you have to have the guts,
All of
you
it.
have to be able to take it, and you better work hard, because if you don't, you're going to be out of the show more than you're in the show.
Mhm.
You really have to work, and you have to be able to handle it when a critic says, "Oh, she stinks."
Mhm.
Because the greatest people in the world have been told, "Oh, she stinks."
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but that would crush my mother.
Right.
My mother was
Right. She didn't have the hide. You need a hide of a rhinoceros.
Now,
and she knew who she was. So my mother knew that this was what I would do. My
right.
father was a smart businessman. My
Okay.
father was a businessman. He
Uh-huh.
wasn't an artist. And my father saw, okay, she's getting a shot here. Let's see where the next thing goes. So
Right.
the next thing went further and further
Uh-huh.
and further. And then my father became not only watchful as he was to see where it was going, but he became very protective. He became protective of money. He became protective of who was around me.
Uh-huh.
He became protective of making sure that when I went on the road, I called 3 times a day.
Uh-huh.
He made sure I finished school. My father he became very protective.
Mhm.
And my mother was just always nervous, so it didn't matter.
Worried, right? The worried mother.
She was always worried I was going to get sick and I was going to be on the road, and then I wouldn't, I'd be away from her, you know what I mean? But my father was watching.
Mhm.
And thank God he was. And thank
Yeah,
God he was.
absolutely, absolutely.
Right,
A
because
good protector.
we hear of what happens to kids. We've had, people on this show that were child stars, and they've talked about stories and and they weren't protected necessarily.
No.
You were.
Or their parents took their money.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Or their parents, I hear things.
It's
And,
terrible.
sometimes parents mismanaged money, not
Right.
because they were bad people, but they didn't have enough understanding of
What
Right,
to do,
right.
right?
of what to do, and it gave license to a lot of bad people to come in and
Right.
do what they wanted.
Absolutely.
So my father was watching. My father was careful. He was watching me.
Uh-huh. Now, you've worked with a lot of big names. Let's start with Sinatra. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about Frank
Great
Sinatra.
Sinatra story.
You know, I learned so much when I worked with Frank Sinatra, because
I would
one of the
think.
great, one of the great lessons, other than the obvious, you know, you work with great people and you watch them work, and I'll explain to you in a minute how that was interesting. But what was interesting for me as a person is that when I worked with Frank Sinatra and prior to my arriving at the engagement, if I tell you how many people said to me, be careful, this guy's erratic, be careful, he's rough, be
Mhm.
careful, he's moody, be careful, he's always drunk. Oh,
Now,
somebody said that to me.
were these people that were in the industry?
Sure,
Oh,
they were all
oh,
in the
They
industry.
knew,
okay.
and they
They were
knew.
all in the industry.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I met Frank Sinatra. And they said agents, all the yes men, all the press agents and all the people. Don't ever go to Mr. Sinatra for anything. If you want anything, you come to us and and I kept my mouth shut. I played by the rules. The
Uh-huh.
first day I got to Vegas, I had orchestra day, and you'll love this, I hadn't even heard the augmented arrangements yet.
Oh my God.
Herbie and I were working at the piano for the longest time, for like a month, you know, getting everything together.
Right.
And he would say, this is where the oboe comes in. This is where the harp comes. Because we had harps, we had violins, we had oboes.
Just
But-
amazing.
But you would never heard it all together.
Together, right? I
Yeah.
can't
Oh my
even
God.
imagine.
But I knew the math. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I knew the work. And Herbie said, go easy. I have a viola solo here. Be careful. You know, like he would tell me.
Yeah.
So when I got to orchestra day, I knew what.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear it, because to hear a musician breathe on it is differently.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course. So I'm paying attention and I'm working and it's all going smooth. And they said, hurry up, finish rehearsal. Mr. Sinatra's on his way. And I didn't think he was coming to rehearsal. Somebody told me that he wasn't, but obviously he was. So I said, that's okay. We only have one more piece. It's fine. So I'm finishing. And just as I'm finishing, I look over, and I remember it was to my left. And I look over and I see somebody waving and throwing a kiss. So I figured they're very friendly here in Vegas.
Throw them back, right? When in Vegas, do what everyone else does.
I threw it back. So I finish up, and you know, the light is, you know, I wasn't used to it. Those lights were so hot. I mean, I had been on stage before, and I was a pro.
Right.
I was 15 and a half, going on 16, and I had done a lot of work.
Amazing.
Wow.
You lived a lifetime by the time you were 16
Yeah.
years old. Incredible.
I did. I mean, I had worked
Before you
everywhere,
were
and I
old
worked
enough
with-
to have a beer.
and I worked with everyone. But on this particular house, the lights were low and they were very hot. So I couldn't really see. So I walked out of the light into the wings, and I saw it was Mr. Sinatra.
Oh my God.
And like Herbie, he had his arms open, and the first thing he said to me was, listen to me. If you need anything, you don't go to them, you go to me.
Oh my
yes!
God, that's great. Oh
And
my
he set up every single night that we were working. He set up a little, remember the old cocktail tables?
Yes.
Like they used to have them, you know, in the venues, in the lobbies and in the bars, and tiny little cocktail tables and chairs. And he set it up in the wings for me. And he said, listen, I have a lot of food in my room, because they used to do huge setups for him. He says, I want you to grab something to eat after you sing. Come into the wings. You'll sit, you'll have a little dinner, and you'll watch the show. So every night I watched him work, and I'd sit at the cocktail table, and he'd put his props on my table when he used to take, you know, bows and stuff. And he'd come off. I'd hand him his water. I'd hand him his.
Oh my God. That's so great. That's great.
And he'd have little conversations with me, and he'd say sweet things to me like, how am I doing? How am I doing? And then he'd have conversations. He would like take a break. And I'd say, you have to get out there. They're going to tear this place apart. What are you doing?
You're like
here?
a team, the two
He's
of
having a
you.
schmooze with me. I said, go. And then I'd hand him his water, and then I'd finish my pepper steak or whatever I was eating. And he ordered me to eat dinner. I had to eat dinner. And I would sit and I'd watch. And this went on. Now I'll tell you where he was really smart. He had a connection with me that was interesting. When he was 15, his mother put him with his first orchestra in New Jersey.
Interesting. So he started with orchestras like you did.
Yes, he saw there was this thing, I was a kid, he was a kid.
Yeah,
and he saw what I was doing, and he really liked me because from the beginning, I was a serious kid. I wasn't fooling around.
Right.
And I was prepared. I was on time. I spoke well to the press. I knew what I was talking about. I did my homework. I knew the show backwards and forward. When he came on and asked me to do something musically, I did it. I had it. I wasn't fooling around. I didn't hang around. I went back to my room. I watched my voice. I was vocalizing before the show. I wasn't kidding around. I was there to do the work. I was like an old soul. Yeah. And this is what you expect from someone who's going to be on a show of that caliber. And my parents warned me. They said, we'll be behind you, whatever you want to do. But the day you fool around is the day we pull you out of this. This is no joke. You're working in major places. But that would never happen with me anyway. And Herbie would never put up with it. So it would not even be an issue. But I think Mr. Sinatra really, but he was smart because he realized by putting me in the wings, I was going to learn leaps and bounds. I was going to be, and every time I worked, it got better and more connected. And what I mean by that is I watched him work, and then I watched myself go into the work, and I started to learn how to connect more. And you when you watch great people, you learn great things. Absolutely. And it's not that you're imitating them, but you're learning how to access yourself.
Right.
Julie, I love what you're saying because you're saying he had such incredible generosity and respect for you. And we all, I don't know Frank Sinatra. We only know what we read.
I didn't know him either.
But look at what you're sharing with us today.
I learned. Yes. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I learned that you have to live by experience.
Absolutely.
You must never, because the same people that are telling a story about him or the next person, when you walk out of the room, they're going to tell a story about you.
Absolutely.
I think people that gossip and speak out of line about other people, there's a meanness to that.
Absolutely.
There's a meanness. And rather than just say to you, I'm happy for you, go enjoy the engagement, go have a great time, I have faith you'll do great.
Yeah.
They have to impart this stuff that had absolutely,
of course,
positively nothing to do with the reality of what happened.
Absolutely. Right. But personally, I think Sinatra saw a lot of himself in you.
Yeah, definitely.
It felt that way.
And that's why I think he kind of took you under his wing and wanted to teach you, and that's amazing. That's just, you learn from the best, man.
From to this day, his family, Nancy and Tina, and I knew Frankie Jr. I'll tell you about that. The most wonderful people, just beautiful, well-mannered, smart, educated people, and they've been kind enough to allow me to be part of this Seriously Sinatra family on radio, and they've been playing my music for quite some time, and I cannot tell you the gratitude I feel, because it is, in my opinion, one of the number one places for the American songbook. They have done incredible things with that station.
Amazing.
And I'm grateful to them, really, truly.
Now, another stellar performer, one of my favorites also, which I'm sure you get compared to a lot, and is Streisand. And did you have an encounter with her, or
I met Barbara on several occasions, and it turned out that Herbie went to high school and junior high, I think, too, with Marty Ehrlichman, who's her manager.
Oh my God.
Do you see all the
Again, that
connections like in my life,
synchronicity.
these crazy things?
That
you know?
Brooklyn synchronicity.
Julie, when you interviewed with Rabbi Mark Golub, and I love the little story you told about the very first time you met Barbara Streisand.
Oh yes, that was in Vegas when I was
Right.
working
That
with
it was the
Liberace.
very first time. And,
Yeah, I was working with Liberace at the time.
Oh my
I
God.
And she was over at the International. Now, the funny thing is I had already worked at the International. And that was before Elvis got there. You know,
Oh
the
my
hotel.
God.
Yeah, the hotel had opened and I had worked with Bill Cosby there.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And he was sort of hot from that whole I Spy thing.
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
and all the different films and stuff that he was starting to do. And I worked with him and there was, well, it'll be in my book. I don't want to blow the
Uh-huh,
smoke.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your book. I mean,
Yeah. Talk
if you
about
weren't
your book.
working on a memoir, we'd all tell you need to be, because the story. And you know what, Julie? If you don't tell these stories, they're going to go away.
Right,
we need to have this out there.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. When I was on the road a lot, oh, but you asked me a question about how did I meet Barbara. I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But about the book, I had been on the road like over 50 years. It's like
50 years. Wow.
and I was, you know, even I was getting exhausted.
Uh-huh.
It's exhausting.
I was like, I said, I really need to be home, you know? And then all of a sudden COVID hit
Right. Yeah.
and I had to stay home.
Mhm.
And since COVID hit, I didn't go back out on the road
Wow. Uh-huh.
because I really am liking
Mm-hmm.
not running for an airplane every 3 days.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It was making me
That
crazy.
life.
That
It was making
that's a tough life. People
It
don't
really-
realize it's a lot. It takes a lot out of you.
it was making me crazy.
Mhm.
And then a couple of things happened. Then I started to get more serious about the book because I found over the years I kept telling people, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write this book. And they go, oh, come on already, write the book. But I found that, you know, you really can't be at two places at one time because when I
Mhm.
was on the road doing shows, they're so consuming
Right.
that I really couldn't.
Focus on a book.
I realized something about writing. Writing is a discipline, and it's the same discipline as when you're working on your voice or your body or the show.
Right.
When you get up in the morning, you have to write.
Mhm.
Right.
You have to say, today I write. And you
Right.
turn off the phone and 5 hours goes and you write. It
Mhm.
you have to discipline yourself the way you do when you go to the gym or your voice
It is
classes.
exactly right.
Absolutely.
When you write, or you're not going to write the book. And I realized I am not going to write if I go back out on the road. That was number one.
Wow.
And then, and around the time that I decided not to go out back on the road, I had broken up with somebody that I thought I was going to marry.
Oh, wow.
And we had been together about 20 years, 22 years.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And we were like family, and his family was like my family, and my family was
course.
like his family.
Yeah.
And then we weren't. And
Wow.
I needed time to find myself.
Oh my
I
God.
needed-
Yes.
And I didn't want to be on the road. And I felt that by going out back on the road, I was going to push how I felt about everything under the table, and somehow it was going to come back and work against me. I had to work out my life and figure out what my second act was going to be.
Right.
And if I was going to go back out on the road, I wanted to be very specific about how I did it and what I wanted to say this time musically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's so easy, just like you said. I mean, that was a very evolved decision that you made, simply because if you went back out on the road while you're in pain, while you're suffering, you put on that persona on stage that everything is fine and everything, and it can almost be debilitating over time.
It was very debilitating,
Yeah.
and I was better off home.
Yeah.
I agree.
In my environment, working on my body, working
where
on my voice.
you had control.
Right.
Absolutely.
Where I-
Working in body.
Very good point.
On your body and your mind.
Yeah.
You know,
And
once
having
again,
my family around me. And
right?
having my
Yes.
friends and my
Those
family.
instincts that you have, you know, kicked in. There would be somebody else saying, "Oh my God, I had this breakup. I need to be working,"
Right.
which
Right.
translates to I need to not deal with the pain
Right.
that I'm
Right.
feeling.
Exactly.
Right. And also, the road could be lonely.
Yes.
Even though I'm with Herbie and
Oh
my
my
band and, you know, my pals, you're still in this solitary place because you
Yeah.
get up in the morning and the first thing on your mind is your voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got to work on my voice. I got to work on my body. You know, when you're in shows, it's not just you get to the theater and you have those hours there. It's you're consumed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
You're consumed, and that's if you're doing it right. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And I didn't want to be consumed. I wanted to get myself together. And then I started liking being still for a while because I had never been still.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
liked it.
When you were a kid, really.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Right.
long time.
Yeah. I never had downtime. If I had 2-3 weeks off, I thought I was out of the business.
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't feel that way now. I
No,
feel like if I have something to say and I walk back into a theater, that will be just fine.
absolutely.
You know?
And you deserve this time. You really did. You deserve this time with yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
Mhm.
it'll help me now with the book.
Right.
Except this
Absolutely.
book would not even be spoken about if you didn't take this time for
Mhm.
Not at
yourself.
all.
And again, the pandemic pushed a lot of us into worlds that
directions,
we were not expecting to be in.
And Herbie just finished his book,
I-
which
Oh,
Oh, that's
Is-
great.
it is such an interesting book. You know, Herb is going to be 94.
wow.
I didn't want to pry, but I was going to ask because when you started talking about him in the present tense, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, what an amazing person.
But if you spoke to Herbie and saw Herbie, I should really pick up a picture. Can I walk over here and grab a picture of us?
Please do. Yeah.
One second, I'll be right back. I don't know if you can see
Loving
it.
this interview. I have so many great comments. Too.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning
Yeah,
in.
for everybody who's
I don't
watching.
know if you're going to be able to see this. Could you?
Hold it right up to the camera, Julie.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, that's a much younger person. That is a very young sensibility.
That man's going to be 94.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
That person is going to be 94. He just wrote a book. He wrote 2 new songs. And
Wow.
and of course I'm not going to schlep Herbie on the road with me.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was doing a local gig and stuff like that, let him
Yeah.
come up on stage and play a couple of songs with me. Why not?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
and I'm sure he would love that and to conduct a few local things. Herbie is very able. He's very strong. He's okay. But we all go through our stages that we just have to become at home with and not be afraid of stages. They're just part of the journey, you know?
It's part of the
Absolutely.
journey. We get a lot of
Absolutely.
pressure though from the outside. I mean, you are Julie Budd. You did one thing for 50 years, and it's the expectations of those people around you when you're not doing those things that puts these pressures on if we allow them to get to ourselves. Obviously, and I can tell you are made of incredibly strong stuff.
Well, I'll be back doing it again. I mean, I still get calls to go to work. I mean,
I would imagine all over.
Somebody just called me to do 2 orchestras in California.
Oh, nice.
Another person asked me to do a small room in California, which I don't know if I want to do. Somebody asked me to come back to New York and do something here and in San Francisco. So
it's laid out.
And somebody asked me to do something in Florida. So I mean, I was asked to do something in Chicago. I still am going to vet these things.
I would think.
But
Absolutely.
right now, in real time, I want to finish my book.
Absolutely.
Good.
And I want to then decide on a new recording. And I think I'm going to record one of the new songs that Herb wrote because he's a wonderful writer. And there are a few people, interestingly enough, some wonderful professionals that I have met through Facebook, who are wonderful musicians. And I wanted to do a holiday CD this year, but I didn't wind up doing it this year because Herb got sidetracked with his book, and then I got sidetracked with something I wanted to do. And I had a documentary that just came out where I'm involved with. It's called Studio One Forever. And I did some press on that. And so I had some things going on. So I didn't wind up doing the holiday CD. And then I wound up doing a dance record, which I didn't put out this year.
My God, I love this.
So I'm thinking next year I'll put out the dance record.
Yes.
Maybe I'll put out a holiday CD. And if I do, there happens to be one particular person that sent me the most wonderful holiday song, which I would like to record. So I'm still in there, and I'm still.
Oh my God, you are!
Absolutely.
It would be great if the holiday CD and the book could all come out at the same time.
That's what I'm hoping.
I'm right there with you. That would be great.
But I have my work to do, and I just simply can't do that if I'm all over the road. And I realized that I am just not one of those people. Now, I worked with Joan Rivers, God bless Joni, and Joni could write on the road, and she could do all of that stuff late at night. She was a late night person, as I am, but I like to be quiet and peaceful after the show. Joni was writing all night. She would write all night, and she was fine with that. But I need to be in my place to write.
It's your process.
Also, everybody's creativity is different.
Right.
Yeah. The discipline, how you do it.
Right.
And it's your
Now,
process.
Julie, we're going over a little bit, if that's okay, if you're okay with that.
That's all right.
I'm loving this. I'm loving
we have
this.
so many comments.
But we also have a video, another video that I
play
really
too.
wanted the viewers to watch. If you can stick around, we'll watch the video, and then we'll talk about, we'll go read some of the comments.
Okay.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Oh, I would love to talk to the people.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay. So please, ladies and gentlemen, Julie Budd. Yay.
When a star is born, they possess a gift or two. One of them is this: they have the power to make a wish come true. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. Your heart is in your dream. No request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Fate is kind. She brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of their secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dream comes true. fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dream comes true. When you wish upon a star, your dream comes true.
Oh my God.
Boy, did you put me in a beautiful state. That was
Well,
just
that was produced by Joel Diamond and Ted Perlman, and Herbie and I know them forever, and they're very good producers, and I look forward to doing things with them again in the future. I know that Herb wants to produce another piece with them, and so do I.
Your voice was perfection.
Thanks.
Just perfect.
Absolute
every
perfection.
note, every feel, just
From not going out after the show.
Yeah, right. You tell them, Julie. Go home, have a cup of tea with honey.
Goodness.
That's right.
No, well, I also just want to touch base real quick on some of the, again, your appearances, like the Merv Griffin show, What's My Line, Carol Burnett, David Letterman, the Jim Neighbors show, David Frost, like these classic
all
television
classic TV people
that you were a part of, and we're so grateful for that. Just
well, the thing that I'm excited is that we took it up to the present, you know, with working with the orchestras and with the going into major cities with symphony orchestras, and then even though we were in COVID, we wound up doing this documentary.
It's amazing.
And it's a really moving piece. I hope you get a chance to see Studio One Forever. And Chita Rivera, God bless her, she's in it. And a lot of people in the industry talked about that time being out in LA working there. It was a very special place.
Absolutely. We've got so many people.
And I just have one quick quote from you that really sums it up. If you didn't pay me, I would work just as hard. That just is it in a nutshell. My God. We have incredible quotes on here.
Rose Trentman says, applaud for Julie Budd.
Thank you.
Jay Barry Azado says, hello, Julie. And Lori Towers says, this beautiful lady was a neighbor of mine many years ago who sang to me when I got my head caught in the fence.
God, I remember how we would get her head out of we had these bars. I told you we shared the porch. And we had these bars, and we used to try to climb through the bars. And sometimes we made it, and sometimes we didn't. And she got her head caught, and we had to help her get her head out of the bars. And she was so adorable. She was so adorable, and her mother was so beautiful. I remember that family like it was yesterday. And she's as beautiful as her mother was. I mean, she's just a charming gal.
Very beautiful person. I'm glad we got her head out of the fence.
Yeah. Well, Suze Genero, who's a fashion designer in Massachusetts, a friend of ours, sends hugs and kisses.
Thank you.
And she's doing the costumes for 50 Shades of Gay on Saturday night.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations.
Howard Tucker says, hi, Julie. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Apollo Cabrera says, my grandfather loves her
from the theater world.
From the theater world, theater world.
Touched so many people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, our good friend John Jigan Griffin Attil sent a couple of things that I thought were wonderful. So great listening to this interview with the fabulous Julie Budd. Curious to hear more about the experience with Barbra Streisand. I heard part of her interview with Rabbi Mark Golub.
That's the one
By the way, I adore Wendy's earrings. I forgot to mention your earrings.
They're gingerbread man. Thank you.
They're adorable.
Holiday time.
Let me say, he says, let me say, I remember Julie so well from Carson. Grew up always watching The Tonight Show. I have a great memory of her singing New York, New York.
Oh, yeah.
Love this interview. Julie is so fabulous. Come to San Diego.
Yeah, he's in San Diego, so.
We'll have to make that one of the stops.
Absolutely. And Howard Tucker also says some great stories.
Nathan DeVore, loving this interview.
Thank you, Nathan.
And there's another one at the Howard.
Okay, Howard Tucker. Interesting that you did meet Barbara. I know we talked about what was perceived about your similarities, but never knew you had met her. And Herb and Marty knew each other.
Yeah,
That's why
sure.
we do these interviews. It's so great.
Sure, sure.
Howard Tucker also says, great interview. I knew her background quite well, but this was very informative with some new stories. Thank you so much.
Eager for the book. Thank you for tuning in.
Rose Trentman, our dear friend, she says, what a super great interview. Such precious stories. Thank you for sharing them.
Thank you, Rose.
Daniel DeCrisio from LA says, what a great interview. Love Julie. She deserves her time off.
There you go. We're all behind you. But your time off really isn't time off because you're doing all these other things.
That's right.
And
That's
Howard
right.
Tucker, I don't know if I'm saying this right.
Samach. Julie, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let's have Happy New Year.
Yes, yes.
So yes, you are very well loved and very well, highly respected and adored.
And Rose wrapped it up with a Zen show for sure.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, listen, I'm wishing you and your families a beautiful new year.
Julie, thank you.
And
Thank
you're
you.
so lovely and generous to have me on this fabulous show.
Well, we want to thank
this-
our thank you. It started out with Rose
Yes.
Apuzzo.
Rosa, I can't think of her last
Rose
name.
Apuzzo.
Apuzzo.
Yeah, Rose, thank you. Little did we know that day when we walked home from that show together, all this would transpire with the amazing Lori Towers. Good people when they,
Yeah.
and you know this, Julie, when good people work together, they can make beautiful things happen.
And we have to thank Cameron. Wasn't it Cameron?
Yes,
Cameron Cole
our
is our
producer.
amazing producer, and he's on my other show tonight. I'm doing a rerun of, he has a film that's coming out, and I have a second show. Cameron's rerun will be on that show. Listen, we try and cover everybody all the time. That's what it's about. And you know what I always say? Why else would I live in New York? Why else would, right? Look what we go through here. We meet the most amazing people.
But we have each other. We have
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Julie Budd, this has just been magical. You are just such a delight, such an incredible
Thank you.
force in this universe,
Yeah.
and we are so grateful that you came on and shared some
Yeah.
of your life stories with us.
I
We're
would
very
love
grateful.
to have you back when the book comes out
Absolutely.
and everything, because that'll
I
be
would
more
be
stories.
thrilled.
And
I would be thrilled.
yeah,
I'd
we would be
thrilled.
thrilled to have you back on. So yes, with bated breath, we wait for that. Have a wonderful holiday.
You too. My love to the two of you.
You too,
Thank you.
sweetie.
Right back
Thank
at
you, Julie
Thank you,
Budd.
everybody.
We love you.
Bye-bye.